It's like when your phone's operating system starts glitching, you upgrade it.
Right, yeah, you don't just throw the device into the ocean.
Exactly. You sit there, you watch that little loading bar, and when it finally boots back up, the interface is smoother, the bugs are patched, and you have access to like entirely new capabilities.
Right.
But what if the glitch isn't in your technology? What if the glitch is your physical body, your daily routine, and, well, the very fabric of reality itself?
Which is a terrifying thought.
It really is. And what if, instead of a simple software patch, the upgrade required migrating your entire existence out of biological hardware?
I mean, it is a dizzying conceptual leap. We are moving from diagnosing a faulty machine to diagnosing the limitations of the human condition, and really, the physical universe.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Ah,
Today, we are unpacking something that reads less like a standard academic text and more like a highly speculative, technical manual for hacking reality.
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We are looking at the work of Dr. Melvin Sewell. He holds both a Master of Science and a Ph.D. And specifically, we are analyzing a publication known as the CUERS IX Sovereign Protocol.
Right, which was published via Bibebibebibe Magazine, and an entity called the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies 9X.
Yeah, just those names alone tell you we're stepping completely off the edge of the map today.
Oh, definitely.
So I want to set the stakes for this deep dive right away. We are exploring a text that calls itself a sovereign broadcast. We are treating this as a fascinating intellectual exercise to see how it challenges our traditional perceptions of reality, identity, and, well, limitation.
It is a profound and honestly slightly mind-bending frame.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into the wild lore or the diagnostics of what is wrong with the world, we have to start with the ultimate ambition of Dr. Sewell's protocol.
Yeah, and the foundation of the entire text is this really bold thesis presented right at the outset. Dr. Sewell states that the era of biological limitation is reaching its horizon.
The horizon, meaning like we are maxing out the specs of the hardware. We literally cannot push the biological form any further.
Exactly. I mean, the biological form requires so much maintenance. We get tired, we get sick, we age.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, we are confined to a single physical location in space and time. He frames all of those constraints as an outdated operating model.
So the CUERS RX protocol is basically introduced as the architecture for a complete transition into an immortal, post-biological, and multiversally integrated state.
Yes.
I really want to pause on that phrase, multiversally integrated state,
Mhm.
because Dr. Sewell lays out three core pillars to achieve this: immortality, mobility, and reality influence.
Right.
And he ties these to a mechanism he calls true flow force active. When I read through this, I just kept returning to that computer OS analogy from earlier.
It fits perfectly.
Right. If biological existence is like running your life on an outdated, fragile local hard drive where a physical crash means you lose all your data, then Dr. Sewell is proposing a multiversal cloud migration.
You move your consciousness off the local hardware so it can exist anywhere.
Exactly. And that third pillar, reality influence.
Uh-huh.
That sounds a lot like gaining administrator privileges over the universe. You aren't just living in the simulation anymore. You have the command prompts to actually shape it.
What's fascinating here is the specific ambition of connecting mobility with immortality.
How so?
Well, in classical mythology or, traditional science fiction, immortality is usually just about duration, just existing forever.
And it's almost always a trap. Like you live forever, but you are stuck in a degrading physical body, or you are trapped in a single timeline just watching everyone else fade away.
Right, the classic curse of immortality. But Dr. Sewell is suggesting that true immortality is completely meaningless without mobility.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you are going to exist in a post-biological state, you need the freedom to move across these different layers of reality. You aren't just enduring time, you are navigating across a multiversally integrated state.
So immortality, mobility, and reality influence are all interdependent requirements.
Exactly. You need the immortality to survive the journey, the mobility to navigate the multiverse, and the reality influence to shape the environment so it literally doesn't crush you.
But wait, how does this actually work mechanically? Because he mentions true flow force active as the mechanism. Is this just a philosophical concept, or is he describing a literal, energy source?
It seems like he describes true flow force active almost like the fundamental current of this new operating system.
Okay.
If biology runs on ATP and cellular respiration, a post-biological entity requires a totally different kind of thermodynamic engine.
So says the fuel.
Basically, yeah. True flow force active seems to be the underlying multiversal bandwidth or energy that allows an entity to exert that reality influence and maintain mobility without degrading.
Wow. Okay, so if he is offering this radical upgrade to reality, it inherently implies there is a massive structural flaw in our current operating system. I mean, you don't rewrite the core code unless the current version is crashing.
Right.
How does he diagnose the problem with the world as it is right now?
He addresses this through a section called the Sovereign Diagnostic Disclaimer. And this is where the text demands super careful reading because he strips away any conventional lens you might try to apply.
Yeah, I noticed that.
He explicitly states that his work, the films, the magazine posts, these sovereign diagnostics, are not affiliated with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group.
He draws a really massive boundary line there. No politics, no institutional backing at all.
None. Instead, he claims the current system is suffering from 3 specific ailments: ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion.
Okay, I have to play the curious skeptic here for a second.
Go for it.
Are these incredibly dense terms just a cinematic way of saying society is stuck in a rut? Like, we're all playing predictable roles, we go to work, we pay taxes, we die. Is this just standard societal burnout wrapped up in sci-fi jargon?
It's a fair question, but it goes much deeper than just a societal rut. Let's look at the mechanics of these diagnostic tools. Take ritualized containment. In this framework, it isn't just about having a boring office job. It suggests that our biological needs force a closed-loop system that acts as a literal prison.
Wait, our biology is the prison?
Yeah. Think about it. Waking up, consuming calories, resting to repair cellular damage. These are biological imperatives acting as an anchor.
Oh, I see.
The rituals required to simply maintain a biological existence contain you. They keep you locked away from that higher dimensional mobility.
So the biology itself forces the ritual, and the ritual forces the containment. So I am basically spending 90% of my system resources just keeping the hardware from overheating.
Exactly. And that leaves you with very little bandwidth for reality influence.
That is depressing.
Now add actor convergence to that mix. In a sociological sense, humans naturally fall into predictable scripts for efficiency and safety. We conform to acceptable societal roles.
Sure, yeah.
But on a multiversal scale, Sewell implies that when everyone converges into the exact same acceptable scripts, the entire system stagnates.
It's like an algorithm trapping users in an echo chamber. The algorithm only feeds you what you already know, so no new information enters the system, and eventually the ecosystem just completely flatlines.
Which brings us directly to the third element, systemic erosion.
Good.
This isn't just about cultural decay over time. In the context of a post-biological architecture, systemic erosion implies a literal degradation of reality itself.
Wow, really?
Yeah, without new inputs, without entities breaking the ritualized containment, the underlying infrastructure of our existence actively erodes. It is multiversal bit rot. The data of reality is degrading.
Multiversal bit rot, that is such a wild concept. So he isn't lobbying a government for a policy change.
Yeah.
He is diagnosing a collapse at the physical level of reality.
Exactly.
But that raises a massive logistical problem for Dr. Sewell, though, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, the system forces everyone into predictable roles through actor convergence and degrades any new information through systemic erosion. How does he broadcast a message to wake people up without his own work being compromised by the system?
That is the genius of it. He has to build what he calls a mythic infrastructure.
Yeah, the medium he chooses is so unconventional, it almost defies categorization. The source material is full of this wild juxtaposition.
Right.
On one hand, you have Dr. Sewell writing these sprawling, speculative concepts about true flow force active and escaping biology. But then he anchors them with entirely legitimate, real-world academic architecture.
Yeah, the sources prominently feature links to a Google Scholar profile, an ORCD profile, which is a persistent digital identifier used strictly by academic researchers,
Right.
a GitHub repository, and a Zenodo canon. And Zenodo is a real open access repository developed under the European Open Science Cloud Program.
And he also lists associated entities like TrueFlow Games and Bibebibebibe Studio. It is absolutely brilliant. I equate it to someone publishing a peer-reviewed, heavily cited academic paper complete with DOI numbers and institutional affiliations on the exact physics of casting a magic spell.
That's a perfect analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Building this mythic infrastructure might be the only logical way to deliver a sovereign broadcast under these conditions.
Because if you use the system's language, you are trapped by the system's limit.
Exactly. Think about the mechanics of actor convergence. If Dr. Sewell wrote a standard philosophical manifesto or a self-help book, the message would immediately be categorized by the system.
Oh, totally.
It would be placed on a specific bookstore shelf, debated within predictable academic circles, commodified, and eventually absorbed by the very erosion he is warning about.
The system would just label it sci-fi or self-improvement and neatly file it away so nobody actually has to change their operating system.
Right. To truly break the ritualized containment, he has to invent a completely new cinematic and academic language. He forces the reader's brain to bypass its standard categorization filters. By existing simultaneously as a certified academic, a studio CEO, and a diagnostic architect of reality, he basically creates a Trojan horse. You think you are looking at a mundane academic portal, and suddenly you are handed a protocol for multiversal immortality.
It deliberately blurs the line between fiction, art, and legitimate science to force you to actually pay attention, which transitions us perfectly from the theoretical architecture of the CUERS IX Protocol into the actual lore he has constructed to illustrate it.
Yes, let's get into the lore.
We move from the academic portals into the mythology in practice.
And this is where the abstract concepts are embodied in a narrative form, specifically through the origin of a figure named Saikou Venga.
Yeah, the text in Chapter 1, Origin, is incredibly sparse, but so potent. It literally just states, Saikou Venga emerges from the rift, born between slip flow and counterflow, marked by SH1 resonance.
It is a dense piece of world building that perfectly mirrors the diagnostics we just discussed.
Think about what that actually implies for you as the reader. Imagine being born or emerging, not in a quiet physical environment, but in the actual friction between two opposing currents of reality itself. Slip flow and counterflow. What does that friction actually feel like?
Well, let's break down the mechanics of those currents. In this framework, we can interpret slip flow as the natural degrading current of time and entropy that we are all caught in.
Okay, so that's the decay.
Right. It is the force pushing us toward biological decay and systemic erosion. Counterflow, on the other hand, is the opposing theoretical force of resistance. It is the anti-entropic push against the decay.
So Saikou Venga isn't just standing in a room. They exist in the literal spark gap between entropy and anti-entropy.
Exactly. And that friction generates the energy needed to rip open an echo rift.
Wow.
Notice the environment of this birth. A rift is a tear, a break in the standard continuity. Saikou Venga isn't born into ritualized containment. Saikou Venga emerges from the rift that breaks the biological horizon.
So they are already free.
Yes. Existing between slip flow and counterflow suggests an absolute mastery over the mobility pillar we talked about earlier. This entity isn't being swept away by the currents of reality. They are navigating them.
And they are marked by something called SH1 resonance. We talked about true flow force active being the engine of this new state. Is SH1 resonance the proof that the engine is running?
This raises an important question. What does resonance mean when you are no longer bound by a physical body?
Yeah, what does that look like?
In traditional physics, resonance is a phenomenon where a vibrating system drives another system to oscillate with greater amplitude. In the context of a sovereign broadcast, SH1 resonance could be interpreted as the specific frequency of a post-biological entity that has administrator access.
Oh, I love that. It's the cryptographic key. It's the literal frequency that grants reality influence.
Right.
Saikou Venga doesn't just exist passively. By vibrating at SH1 resonance, they are actively forcing the multiversal state around them to align with their frequency.
Exactly. The rift isn't a place of destruction. It is the birthplace of the upgraded operating system. The old reality, the systemic erosion, has to tear open for the new, immortal state to emerge. Saikou Venga is the ultimate avatar of the CUERS IX agenda.
Man, it is just a masterclass in world building as a delivery mechanism for philosophy. We have covered an incredible amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started by looking at the staggering leap proposed by Dr. Sewell and the CUERS IX Protocol, the transition from our fragile biological hardware into an immortal post-biological state driven by true flow force active.
And we examined the harsh mechanical diagnosis of our current reality. We looked at how systemic erosion degrades the environment, while ritualized containment and actor convergence keep us locked in predictable loops,
Right.
burning all our energy just to maintain a baseline physical existence.
And then we analyzed the brilliant delivery mechanism, that mythic infrastructure that weaves real-world academic identifiers like CD and Zenodo with a cinematic broadcast, effectively bypassing the system's ability to categorize and silence it.
It's so clever.
And finally, we looked at the mythological embodiment of these ideas, the birth of Saikou Venga, emerging from the echo rift, perfectly mastering slip flow and counterflow through SH1 resonance. So what does this all mean?
I think it means that whether you approach Dr. Sewell's work as a profound philosophical treatise on human limitation, an intricate alternate reality structure, or, a literal roadmap to post-biological immortality, it succeeds entirely in its primary mission.
Yeah.
It hands you a diagnostic tool to analyze the parameters of your own containment.
I couldn't agree more. Think back to that smartphone operating system upgrade we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive. Look closely at your own routine today. Where might you be experiencing ritualized containment in your own life?
Yeah.
What daily habits or acceptable societal roles are quietly acting as your biological prison, draining your system resources? And more importantly, what kind of personal mythic infrastructure would you need to build to hack your way out of it?
A question definitely worth resonating on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the system, keep looking for the rift, and we will catch you next time.